I'd like to welcome everybody to our Space Cat YouTube channel and to the launch of our Severed Souls anthology, which we're really thrilled to be bringing out. So this is a copy of that. But particularly, I'm very pleased to welcome one of our Space Cat stars today, one of the authors from the anthology, which is John Fulton. So really delighted to have you with us here today, John.
Thank you.
John is one of our Space Cat stars, and you've been with us right from the beginning, John. So you were here with our Uncharted
Yeah.
Constellation anthology as well, which came out a year or so ago, and now in our Severed Souls anthology as well. So your story was called Call of the Void. We really liked this story, and it really spoke to the theme that we set for this anthology, which was aliens and otherness. And we asked you to think about what that theme meant for you, what it evokes for you, and to write from that place. So what did this aliens and otherness theme spark for you, John?
The word alien is what jumped on straight away. An encounter with the alien is one of the staples of science fiction. And there's many different types of encounter, but the one that I've always been interested in is the inexplicable encounter, the type that opens up the horizons of human experience to a bigger universe. That's the sort of alien I wanted to write about. It was Ian Banks called this type of encounter an outside context problem. An encounter completely outside your society's experience you didn't prepare for, you couldn't prepare for because it's so completely outside the bounds of your own context. So it's something completely unknowable and strange, and in the case of my story, not explained.
The unknowable. Yeah, I think that's perfect. And I think that's why your story appealed to us. And we wanted stories within the anthology that reflected that mysterious, as you say, unknowable aspect of the alien and kind of what is out there, what might be out there, and so on. Also, I think one of the things I really liked about it is that it's set kind of around the International Space Station with an astronaut. It's all very familiar. It's all very kind of NASA high tech. And then you drop into that, this kind of mysterious otherness that we can't really get a handle on, that remains very ambiguous within the story. So that really appealed to me very much. Yeah, so kind of broadening out from that a little bit, so I wondered, why does the figure of the alien have such a hold on our imagination?
There's an old adage that there are only two plots.
Yeah.
First one is a person goes on a journey, and the other one is a stranger comes to town. It's not true. There are more than two, but it's a good way of looking at things. They both have something in common. There's a disruption of the status quo, and that's what you need to get a story off the ground. So the alien, whether it's extraterrestrial or not, it does exactly that. It breaks the status quo, gets the story moving. So that's why in my story, there is a stranger coming to town, where the stranger's beyond the solar system and the town is Earth.
Yeah. There was something in your story that reminds me of that Yeats poem, which I really can't remember the line of exactly, but that kind of, the fairies calling to us, come away, human child, to the waters and the wild. I wonder if in some way the figure of the aliens has kind of taken that place within our folklore.
In medieval times, people saw demons, they saw the Sidhe, they saw fairy were abducted by fairyland. And since the 50s, people have been abducted by aliens. So it's the same mysterious otherness of something beyond our experience, and we just interpret it in different ways.
Yeah.
What we used to be the Fae is now little green men or the Greys.
Yeah, so it's got something of that kind of charge to it, hasn't it? Yeah. So the other side of our call-out theme was the otherness, otherness and othering, and the kind of social and political aspects of the alien. Did that feature at all in how you were approaching your story?
It didn't really, because my story really only deals with the initial encounter. So
yeah,
it doesn't go into the social or political ramifications of what might happen afterwards.
Yeah.
You'd like to think an encounter with alien life would have a radical effect on the human psyche, but
Mm.
it might end up being hushed up, treated as fake news, or made the subject of 1,000 conspiracy theories, and we learn exactly nothing and just reinforce our own prejudices. Maybe I'm too cynical to write a continuation of the story. I
Yeah.
like the awe of the initial encounter, and
Yeah.
the grubbiness of the human reaction to it might
Yeah.
not might
That's
not appeal to me.
Yeah, that's quite interesting because a lot of kind of science fiction stories do show us kind of messiness of what goes after the first contact
Mm,
moment. So I like that your story just kind of stops there and leaves us to really kind of imagine, what might lie beyond that first moment of contact.
mhm,
And we certainly have plenty of stories in the anthology that take us to that other place as well. So yours is a short story,
mhm.
and I wondered, was there anything about the kind of story concept you had here that led you to a kind of reasonably, quite fleshed out short story, or indeed is that kind of what you tend to write anyway?
I've only ever written short stories and novels.
Yeah.
I don't think I've got the brevity to handle flash fiction or poetry. I
Yes.
need a good run up at a story. Um,
Right. Yeah. Yes.
if brevity is the soul of wit, I'm just not very funny.
Fair enough. Yes. Uh, well, for us, it's the appeal of having quite a mix, really, of stories that really kind of develop and take you somewhere, and then we've got some flash fiction pieces that have a very different kind of quality to them, just because of that brevity, as you say, much more sort of ambiguity going
Mhm.
on. Um, so another issue for all of our authors or poets in this anthology is the viewpoint. Do you, as you're writing it, take the viewpoint of the alien or of the observer, whether that's a human or not?
In my story, it's the observer. It's the
Yeah,
astronaut who's on a spacewalk outside the International Space Station, as you mentioned earlier.
yeah,
Um, so I wanted to ground the story, I mean, even though it's set in space.
yes,
I've tried to make it as absolutely realistic as possible. The beginning of the story, it's set in space, but it's not science fiction. It happens all the time. You can watch it on YouTube. In fact, I do quite often watch the spacewalks live streamed on YouTube.
yeah,
Um, so I wanted to ground the language as well. So it's all very prosaic, the procedures and jargon of NASA. It's one of the lovely paradoxes of space exploration. You're out there in space, you're exploring the universe. It's the final frontier where virtually no one has gone before. But the daily routine, it's tightly scheduled, it's laborious, it's
yes,
tedious, it's procedure driven. It's down to the number of turns on the cordless drill that they use.
yeah,
Oh yeah, that nut's going to take you 16 turns. Okay, yeah, and it was 16 turns. They know
yes,
every single step. It's
yeah.
so,
So pre-scheduled.
yes.
And then right down to your joke about the astronauts peeing in space as well. It's lovely.
Well, that's true. I mean, that was a story that Tim Peake used to tell in
Yeah,
interviews about seeing the gorgeous golden sparkles. Yeah, that's the Russian toilets.
yeah. That's lovely. Yeah, so you very much took the viewpoint of the observer. So it's very much, it's kind of coloured by the human's perception of all of
Yes.
this. And then we just get this hint of a voice of something coming from the other side of that encounter. So the last thing that I wanted to ask you is this kind of broader question of, do you think that there is life there out in the universe, and if so, does it matter to us at all?
Uh, well, we've discovered about 5,000 exoplanets
Yeah.
across 3,000 star systems. Since we started being able to detect them, that's only about 30 years since we've been able to tell. And as time goes on, we are getting better at detecting them and we're getting more and more and more. So the number is growing all the time. So we're pretty sure that planets are reasonably commonplace.
Mm-hmm.
And our own galaxy has got 100 billion to 400 billion stars. And there's one estimate that says that about 11 billion of those star systems will have a planet that's roughly Earth-sized in the habitable zone where there is the possibility of liquid water. And that's what we think is the requirement
Yes.
for life. And then that's just our galaxy. Then there's roughly 200 billion galaxies in the observable
Mm.
universe.
Yeah.
So even if the conditions for life are incredibly unlikely in terms of the size of the planet, temperature, protection from cosmic rays, because you need a magnetosphere, axial inclination for seasons, that might be important.
Yeah.
Close lunar companion for tides, that might be important.
Mm.
But even if you need all of those things, that the conditions have to be so similar to Earth, there are bound to be some planets out there with the right conditions.
Yes.
So I can't believe that there wouldn't be life out there. And we don't even know how close to Earth the requirements are. We haven't even ruled out the rest of our solar system.
Yeah.
There could be long dead microbes in Mars. You never know, that once flourished beneath the sands. There
Well,
could
yeah.
be, there could be life frolicking in the shallows of the hydrocarbon lakes of Titan. I mean, our solar system would not even scratch the surface.
Yeah.
So the universe could be teeming with life. It could be empty, and I think I would find that rather more frightening than a universe that's teeming with life.
And of course, in all of that, I mean, science fiction has taught us to think of the alien as a kind of humanoid figure, you know.
It's not going to be like, when we find life, it won't be like us, will it?
No, but
It'll be almost unimaginable.
yeah,
But science fiction writers do their best to keep trying to imagine it.
yes, to imagine the unimaginable. Yes.
Mm.
Very good. Well, listen, John, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your thoughts on the Alien and Otherness. And, you know, really, I encourage people to have a look at your lovely story as well, which does have that mysteriousness to it in our Severed Souls anthology. So thank you very much, John.
Thank you for having me.